Hi, I'm Michael. I am a former drama teacher. I am a small business owner and military wife. I used to teach high school theater until we were stationed in California, and my teaching license is not valid in California. So I'm no longer teaching, but I still have a home business that I run. It's a Harry Potter themed store. I ship them all over the world, and I also travel across the country to Comic Cons and that sort of thing. I also obviously love crafting and making things. Um, I love sewing, and I also have two very small dogs that are my fur babies. Come here, Ollie. This is Ollivander, or Ollie. See? Say hi. No, you don't want to be up here? And they're keeping me sane while I'm here in quarantine. Uh, my husband is not deployed right now, which is great because that would be terrifying. But he is working 1 week on, 1 week off because most of the military is on half staff right now. Other than that, I'm originally from Michigan and went to college in Utah, and Utah is really where I claim as home at the moment. Um, and I feel really passionate about removing the stigma of mental health issues. Because if we're able to talk about it, we're not going to feel so alone. The mental illness that I struggle with is depression. I was first diagnosed with depression and kind of realized that I had some issues my freshman year of college. I think that's a really common time for a lot of kids to really realize that there may be something a little different. You're on your own for the first time, and you're put into stressful situations that you're not, maybe not used to. You're separated from friends and family. I know for me that was a really big trigger. Leaving my friends from high school, who I was so close with, uh, was really hard, and I felt so alone and I felt so isolated. But that's kind of when I first thought that there might be a problem. I was officially diagnosed with depression the second half of my freshman year of college. I had been struggling with attending class, and because I've always been so driven, like skipping class was never really an option for me. Like it just didn't click in my head, but there was no enjoyment in anything. And that was coming from someone who's always loved learning, who loved school, who wanted to go on to teach school because she loved it so much. I do remember, a friend of mine was like, you have to every day, find one thing to be grateful for to kind of, pull yourself out of this funk. And I remember walking across campus this one day, and to be fair, it's one of the most beautiful campuses I think I've ever seen in my life. And I sat down on these steps outside and was like, think of something positive. What's one thing that's positive? And the only thing that I could think of that I was grateful for or that was positive that day was that the hand soap in the bathroom of the theater building smelled really good. I realized that was not a normal response. Um, so that combined with the fact that all of my hair was falling out from stress led me to go to the doctor. And they diagnosed me with depression and then also a thyroid issue, which is why my hair was falling out. She gave me some, I think Zoloft, a sample prescription. And every day when I got home, I was supposed to write on a calendar like how good or bad the day was on a scale of like 0 to 10, 10 being the best day you've ever had. You might as well be at Disneyland seeing your favorite heartthrob. I don't know. And 0 being, I really don't want to be on this planet anymore. And leading up to before I'd gone to the doctors, I was kind of doing that anyway in my head. And it was like 2s and 3s, a couple 1s. It had gotten to the point that at one point I had tried to end my life. I'm not going to go into it too much. Obviously it didn't work, which I'm very grateful for. But after being given medication, it was a really remarkable difference for me. Like looking at the calendar, it was like 2, 3, 3, 2, 4. And then there was the doctor's appointment. It was like 5, 6. 6, 9, 9, 9, 10, 9. It was very, very marked. Medication for me was a wonderful treatment. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I've kind of been working with my doctors to tweak my medications. I was on Zoloft for 15 years at a constant dose, and really it worked pretty well for me. There were some side effects that I wasn't a huge fan of, and so I started working with my general practitioner when we got to California at the Air Force Base to try and find a different medication that maybe had side effects I could tolerate a little better. And I've now learned that changing medications is a roller coaster ride of terrible. And I would also recommend anybody that's looking at changing up medications, do your best to make sure that you don't have any huge upheavals or big life changes coming up within like that next month, because staying positive and active and motivated becomes very difficult sometimes when you're switching between those meds. I've also done a little bit of therapy. I haven't found a therapist that I love, so I kind of don't go as often as I probably should. I just need to find a therapist I think that I can connect with and who doesn't treat me like a moron. Having depression as a mental illness has taken away quite a few things. At one point, it nearly took my life, which, looking back now, feeling a lot healthier, is just so scary. It took away joy. It's taken away time. It takes away my motivation. The second half of my freshman year of college was one of the greatest times of my life. It's great. You've got no responsibilities. You've got all these friends. You live in dorms. It's like we're fake adults with no real responsibilities, and it's amazing. It's a great time to figure out who you are and to try new things and really enjoy your life. And I feel like I missed out on the first half of that year. Because I wasn't healthy enough to see that there were all these really amazing opportunities in front of me. Even now, though, if I accidentally skip meds or something else is funky, I can feel it creeping back in. And it definitely, for me, takes away my motivation to be productive. And as someone who works from home, who works by themselves, I'm the only person that can tell me to get back to work. So it can be really debilitating for my financial income if I'm not able to work on product or advertising or whatever it is that I need to do. I think the most important thing that I've gained from being diagnosed with a mental illness is my ability to empathize with others. Obviously, no two people's experiences are ever going to be the same. But having been on this side of it now, it's easier to give someone else a break, to know that they may be struggling with something that is the hardest thing they've ever dealt with in their life, because I have been there. It's also helped me gain the confidence to encourage other people, to seek help, to reach out when they need it, because I know that I wouldn't be here without the people who reached out to help me. As a teacher, and especially a high school teacher, I feel like there's a lot of students, especially in this day and age, that are struggling, and heaven knows now that we're all quarantined, I worry about everybody's mental health. But students where life is so big and you feel so small and there's so much coming at you that, I know frequently students have come to me and expressed how depressed or sad or stressed they are. And I feel like I'm able to communicate with them on a more honest level because I have also been there. Being stuck inside because of COVID has been, hate the phrase roller coaster, but it really has. It's been like almost every other day. It's like, I have a great day and everything's terrible the next day. And I have a great day and everything's terrible the next day. The terribles have been pretty bad. There's been a lot of sitting on the couch crying about nothing and not nothing, about things that I can't control. I get completely overwhelmed with how the rest of the world is going to be affected, how, my grandma right now was tested positive and she's 92 years old, and I may not get to see her again if she doesn't get better, and we can't go see her now because she's in quarantine without my husband coming home from work and pulling me out of it the last couple days. I don't know where I'd be. I'm still doing phone appointments with my therapist, who I don't really like, but I've really appreciated that they're still willing to make those phone calls instead of office visits. Because I'm a big Harry Potter nerd, there's a couple like quotes that kind of keep going through my head, but there's one from Fantastic Beasts, and Newt Scamander says, "I believed that worrying means you suffer twice." And I've had to remember that I can't sit and stew and worry about what's coming, because I'm only able to control what I can control, which is I have to stay home or, social distance, wash my hands, like control the things that I can control and try not to worry. I've never been a very anxious person. And when I was anxious, it always came out in the form of like anger. But this has been a whole different kind of anxious that I never knew I could feel. Just this hopeless, helpless feeling. And so it's just those daily moments of trying to stay positive, finding the joy in the world. For me, a lot of the times it's my little puppies, because they're who I see every day and they don't know anything's wrong. So they have big smiling faces and can always keep me going. There are lots of things I wish other people understood about mental illness. The biggest one is that you don't control it. I hate to say that it controls you, but it kind of does. Whenever I'm upset, and my husband will ask me, like, what's going on, and I'll try and explain to him what's got me upset. And I've got these two characters in my head. I've got my rational brain, and I've got I call it my crazy brain, but like my depressed side, where I can sit here and say, my rational brain knows that this is not a big deal, or that this is something that I can handle, or that this is something that really isn't going to affect me or whatever. But I've got this other voice that I cannot silence, and I cannot reason it away. It's not just, you have to think positively. Yes, those things help. You have to exercise. Yes, that helps. It can be such an impossible task to get up and exercise when you're truly stuck in depression. Even someone like me, who I consider myself relatively intelligent, incredibly capable, self-sufficient, independent, like those are all things that I really value about myself. And the depression can kind of completely wipe that away. I think if there's, any last thing that I could share, would be for others to know that you're not as alone and isolated as you may feel right now. There are people that love you, and there are people who want to make sure you're okay. And I don't know what's going to happen, which still scares me. But I've seen a lot of good in the world over the last couple weeks. On base, there was a shortage of baby formula, and there's all these infants that were hungry. And to see all these Facebook posts and people who are saying, I have this, what do you need? Call me. It's beautiful, and it really does give me hope that there is good in the world, even when things seem really terrible. Who's that with you? Yeah. Things are going to be okay.